Yo, what is up guys, the Ultra News Meteorological Service here, and today this is update number 6 on Hurricane Irma as of 17:30 UTC on the 6th of September 2017. So Hurricane Irma is currently a Category 5 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Storm's current location at 18.4 degrees north, 64.5 degrees west, with winds of 185 miles per hour and gusting up to 220. Central air pressure at the present time is 918 millibars, movement west-northwest at 16 miles an hour. So Hurricane Irma has been striking the Caribbean islands over the last 12 to 24 hours. We're expecting now that the storm will remain a Category 5 for some time, as well as causing significant damage, flooding and disruption. The storm remains with winds of 185 miles per hour. However, we may be expecting the storm to weaken, as there is currently a recon mission in the storm at the present time, and at the moment has only picked up winds in the range of 165 to 175 miles per hour. However, I still do believe it's in its early stages of the recon, so the possibility of the storm beginning to weaken may be on the cards. We will keep you updated as this story develops. I'm sorry as well that there wasn't an update this morning. That's because I had to head straight out to Basingstoke again, so I didn't have enough charge to do a mobile update as well, which is a bit annoying, but hey ho. We'll move on now to the satellite imagery. So this is the latest satellite imagery from the Satellite Service Division. So you can see in the top left there the visible imagery. The storm is actually consolidating a lot more now, and it looks like at the present time that the storm may take a slightly more northern course than what we are expecting, and that is something that's possibly it's looking at the moment that rather threatening to the USA. At the present time, the storm is expecting to be sent north. So it should be just about be heading north, just about Puerto Rico. The towns and cities there, well, city really, on Puerto Rico should actually only, they shouldn't get a direct hit. However, the conditions there will be rather inclement, to say the least. And there's still question at the moment over the storm's track towards the Dominican Republic and Haiti, because look at the moment, there's the possibility for a direct landfall in the Dominican Republic, possibly around the area of Samana, which is a small town sort of on the eastern side of the Dominican Republic, and also looking at the moment with Haiti on the other side will also experience some very inclement conditions. However, they do have one island there, which is marginally impossible that could shield some of the area around Port-au-Prince, and also some areas in the bay around there. But that's something that does need to be heavily watched, as well as Cuba, I do now believe, are under warnings as well at the moment. But we'll get to that in just a moment's time. You can see that down there on the bottom left you've got the water vapour imagery, and you can also see that it's surrounding the storm. It is a very dry environment. However, the storm is shielding itself with its own spiral bands, and also you see in the top right is the you can see there with the banding on the rainbow imagery, and also you can see how cold those cloud tops really are, although parts of it has been diminishing actually in the last few frames. You can see that there's a possibility that the storm may be weakening, though in the Dvorak imagery does tell a different story, with some actual possible re-strengthening in that one. However, the storm is starting to lose a bit of banding around its centre, with the inside of the eye at the moment is possibly becoming a little bit more clouded over again. But it's something to watch out for, and the storm is still going to pack a heavy punch in Puerto Rico, as I do now believe that they are experiencing levels of winds of a tropical storm. So here you guys can see the the maps here as well. So you got the forecast map. Also included in this part of the update as well is included the wind shear maps. And you can see there very minimal wind shear around Hurricane Irma at the moment. However, around Tropical Storm Katia in the Gulf of Mexico, you can see there that storm actually at the moment is moving south, so away from that wind shear to the north. However, the Gulf of Mexico will present some problems possibly for Irma if it does go through that way. However, wind shear may drive the storm into Florida, but ahead of the storm, wind shear is increasing, which may also actually weaken the storm some before it strikes the mainland USA. But at the moment, looking at the USA's likely outcome is that the storm may still strike, is almost definitely going to strike as a major hurricane. Possibly the mid-range Category 4 hurricane is definitely on the cards at the moment. With even Category 3 is almost definite at this certain time, due to the storm's current conditions are very conducive for development. There are no sea surface temperature maps on this update, however should be included in the next one, so do stay tuned for that. And also looking at the shear tendency as well. It's actually looking, though, ahead of the storm, as I say, it is beginning to increase, so that may be something of a good turn in the conditions for the storm. It may weaken it some before packing a heavy punch in Florida. However, this storm is going to be, even still now, will be a humanitarian disaster in the areas around the Caribbean, and also areas around Florida should be watching the storm's progress with heavily watching the progress of the storm. But some parts of the Bahamas now under hurricane watches. Also, most of the coast of Cuba on the side of Hurricane Irma are now under hurricane watches. Most of the Haiti and Dominican Republic under hurricane warnings and tropical storm warnings, and also the islands around the storm as well at the moment, almost certainly under hurricane warnings, with all of the coast of Puerto Rico now under a hurricane warning, and also parts of Puerto Rico are now experiencing winds of a tropical storm force, and also the islands behind it are still experiencing some parts of the storm's outer reaches, with the storm now clearing some islands around the area around the Virgin Islands, as well as Montserrat, Guadalupe, and also clearing Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda as well, which are both have been heavily hit by the storm at the moment. And looking at it's a very small island and very exposed, the island of Antigua, and also Barbuda as well. Barbuda only has one small, it's only one small town with a small airport as well, but that still did probably pack a heavy punch, and I would say at the moment that that island will probably be very much devastated. Also due with high surf as well during the storm, would have packed a very, very heavy punch to the area, but it's a story that we will have to wait and see what will happen as regards to what will happen with the islands, as well as also looking at possible outcomes with the storm. It's just, I'm so in awe with what has happened over the last few days with the storm. Sort of, we were expecting it to hold Category 4 strength before weakening, and I think the NHC were being a bit conservative with their forecasts. However, I think they were just hoping for it not to be the worst, and it is something that it's taken us all by surprise. It really has, and it's probably one of the worst storms that we've seen since 2005, possibly Now, if it's stays on its current course, follows the National Hurricane Center forecast to a T, then we could be looking at something that might be on par with that of Hurricane Katrina of 2005, if it follows the current forecast and makes landfall, possibly in Florida, even still as a Category 4 hurricane, and even maybe a strong Category 4, all low and Category 5. It'll be the first Category 5 landfall I believe we've seen on US soil since that of Hurricane Andrew, because Hurricane Katrina as well did actually weaken to a Category 3 hurricane just before landfall. But Irma still will pack a very large punch to the USA, whatever category. It's almost definitely now going to be a major hurricane landfall somewhere on the US coast. As out to 3 days, it's pretty certain on the forecast, but after 3 days, there's still a lot to debate as regards the storm's possible track, as well as thinking about what the storm may do. We also see Hurricane Jose, which is behind the storm at the moment, currently with winds of 70 miles per hour. It's just about to become a hurricane. There is still some debate as to what that storm may do. Also in the wake of Hurricane Irma, left with possibly with some cold water trails. The current forecast, I do believe, for Hurricane Tropical Storm Jose, about to become Hurricane Jose, is that we may possibly be looking at a strong Category 2 hurricane, possibly even becoming a Category 3. It's currently forecasted for a high-end Category 2, but we will have to wait and see what will happen with the storm. It might just be able to clip that of major hurricane strength. The current totals for this year's hurricanes is there has been 12 tropical depressions, 11 tropical storms, 4 hurricanes, 2 of which have gone on to become major hurricanes, which is Hurricanes Harvey and Irma, with Harvey being 130 mile per hour Category 4 hurricane, and then also, because I believe that actually also struck near peak intensity, which exploded out from a tropical storm to Category 4 within 36 hours, and then also re-emerging off the coast to strike again in Louisiana. The forecast tracks at the moment, with the track for Hurricane Harvey, was somewhat interesting actually, becoming a tropical storm but then dissipating, but then regenerating in the Gulf of Mexico. Sort of doing something like Hurricane Helene of 2012, but something slightly different intensity as well. But however, this is a storm that can't be ignored for obvious reasons, and it's something that really does heavily need to be watched over the next few days, especially in America as well. It is just astounding how this storm has developed. It is very astounding. I remember watching this storm and we weren't too sure what it might do. I believe from the outset actually that the storm was forecasted to become a major hurricane, and some people were possibly saying Category 3, maybe Category 4. A few people here and around possibly suggesting Category 5. But this is the big one. It is literally possibly the biggest storm in the Atlantic since that of the storm in 2005. I see the image has also just refreshed itself there as well, but it is really just astounding how it's managed to get to this intensity. It's currently got an air pressure of 918 millibars as well, which actually I think for a hurricane of this strength is a little bit high. But yeah, enough of me waffling on. But that is the update. I will just reiterate the latest details from the storm. So the storm is currently a Category 5 hurricane with sustained winds of 185 miles per hour, gusting to 220 miles per hour, with a central air pressure of 918 millibars, moving west-northwest at 16 miles per hour. And also is still a Category 5 hurricane. So as I say, interest in Florida should be heavily monitoring this storm, as there is the marginal possibility that the storm may strike the mainland US, possibly as a Category 4 hurricane. So it's something we must watch with intent, and any interest in the areas, especially people in the Bahamas, should be closely monitoring this storm, as it is now looking likely that the storm may pass through some of the southern islands of the Bahamas, maybe even still as a Category 5 hurricane. So people must be watching this storm with close intent. But anyway, that's all from me now. Thank you guys for watching. This is the Auto News Meteorological Service, signing off.